for example, I think there's a slightly, probably a little bit more mature venture market now in India. The way it got started is because some of us, from outside, took the risk, and the angels actually took the risk. And we went into the Indian market, we invested in a bunch of things, we lost some money. That was the purpose actually, which is just to seed the ecosystem so that entrepreneurs are then excited to come out and say, no, we are not going to take a 9-to-5 job. We are going to take a risk and we are going to do a startup, right? But in the first generation, we decided to come back and angel invest. And once we from the valley were in Bangalore and India, what happened was that the venture capitalists from the valley also decided then to follow, because they figured, because they'd already been invested in us, right? So they already knew us, and so I think they decided that if these guys are going and putting their personal income into startups in India, then let's follow them. And so now I think there's a growing market, and I think in Pakistan it is about to take off, because there are two people that I think you guys must keep an eye on. One is a gentleman called Osman Rashid. He's a brilliant entrepreneur based in Silicon Valley. He's just opened an office in Islamabad. But he's an angel investor. He's a prolific angel investor. So if Osman invests in Pakistan, in the Pakistan ecosystem, in general, I think the venture capitalists will wake up and look. And the second person that you must keep an eye on is Asha Aziz. Asha has done a chip company that he took public, and I forget the name of his company.
I forget it as well at this point.
Have you guys met Humayun Masar in Lahore?
Yes. Actually, you know what?
Ventures?
Huh?
Crest Ventures.
Yeah.
All right. He's also been doing great. I mean,
Correct.
When he was first starting out, I was sort of on and off, sort of briefly involved.
I haven't met him yet, but I know that he.
If you're heading off to Lahore, I can.
Please, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great.
We will be heading out there.
But I think there are 2-3 of these entrepreneurs, that are going to be crucial to wake up the venture industry in Silicon Valley. And I think it's important to have the venture industry here, even though folks like yourself and Humayun might be a good start. I think we still need to have the more, sort of globally oriented, the Greylocks and so on, coming in here, and they will. Because this is a growing market, the middle class is growing fast in Pakistan. The cell phone growth is stellar in Pakistan already. So I don't see why venture capitalists won't be here. And then, I'm already here, so feel free to talk about it also. And
the only thing that I would add to it is that that's always the way it happens. It's the local market that tends to underestimate the potential, and it's usually the outsiders who are really seeing a country or a market from a different perspective, having experienced growth in their own domestic markets, and then they see that sense that opportunity, and the entry price and the entry point is so low right now in Pakistan, which is going to change.
True.
I would imagine would change very, very quickly, because once people figure out that the market truly has potential, that a market truly has talent, then it gets priced appropriately. Right? Mm-hmm. So valuations start rising, very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. I would say the topmost thing for you guys to do actually is to incorporate a company at the US also. It's very easy. So let's say if you're incorporating, Kareem.com or something right here, make sure you incorporate it in Delaware. Create a Delaware corporation. It doesn't cost anything. I think you can do it online now. It's $250 or something, and set up an organization. Do you guys know Naveed Sherwani by any chance? Or actually email me if you have any questions. Because his nephew Ahmed is a lawyer,
right?
And he's actually good with setting up all these things. He's based in Palo Alto, and so I would recommend for sure set up a US entity also. So it's a dual entity. And there is no, Pakistan doesn't have any law against it, right?
No law against it. In fact, there's been some work that's happening to allow venture capital funds as well as private equity. So I think that there have been certain, I'm not up to speed on it, but I think that the SECP has been working on getting some of these structures. But as Asha mentioned, I think you're absolutely right that there's already an existing structure. Right, venture capitalists or most investors like to follow things that they already understand. And typically,
Yeah.
the investment usually happens through like a preferred structure versus kind of the common equity that we have here. So some of these structures I think make more sense when you have the incorporation in the US market. But we don't really have to wait, as Asha says. If you have a great idea, you can incorporate a company in a jurisdiction where investors
I think you
are
can go
comfortable.
online. You could just go online and say, Google something like set up a Delaware corporation. That's it. And then you'll find a form, fill out that form, say you're a foreign company, but that you want to incorporate in the US also. Because once you do that, you suddenly become, like you're part of the game then, suddenly, and everybody then sees you as a US company also. And I've had all my startups in India do that. Till we incorporated a US company, nobody wanted to even meet them,
Right.
so.
That kind of brings me to the point of like giving people exposure, right? At the end of the day, it's about people, and I'm sure you've traveled around the world. You come across incredible entrepreneurs that, if exposed to the magic, if you want to call it, of Silicon Valley, right, where there's abundance, there's abundance, and there's not so much focus on scarcity.
True.
What would you say to entrepreneurs who have looked up to the Silicon Valley model? Would you encourage them to take a little bit of time, save a little bit of money, and come out and see for themselves what's happening there?
Yeah. So I actually have a fellowship in my husband's memory, and we've been around for about, it's called the Rajiv Circle Young Entrepreneurs Fellowship. And in that fellowship, we first started in India. I started because that's where I go all the time. But last 2 years, we have started taking in applications from Pakistani entrepreneurs. And so the first batch had 2 girls come in, and the second batch, which was 2016, had 5 people come in. 5 entrepreneurs from Pakistan that come in. And it's a very simple thing that we do actually. We send you an invitation letter saying, you've been awarded the Rajiv Circle Fellowship. You buy a round trip ticket, it's like $900 in off season. We pay for most of that, right now if needed. And when you show up, how I was telling Asha that some of these things are just, one can actually wake up in the morning and say, what can I do, right? And I realized that my mother's house in downtown Palo Alto was something that she was not using too much. And we've started calling it the startup house now. And we've had 45 graduates by now. And one of the things we tell them is that they have a bed in Palo Alto for the rest of their lives. So that if they do a second startup or a third startup, they'll always have one bed for free. So all they have to do then is buy a round trip ticket, and in off season it's very cheap actually. That's all. Once you show up there, you have people like Asha, call them and leverage them,
The amount I pay for my apartment in San Francisco, if you can give me a bed in Palo Alto, I'd be very, very happy.
So, and we should both answer this actually, but in my book, I think fintech is a big open space here, and nothing heavy duty has come out yet, either from India or Pakistan. And I think blockchain is the next big thing, because it's a ledger system that's available for free. It scales infinitely. It has fabulous security. So I think blockchain is something that you must keep an eye on. And on top of that, you can build various things, whether it's an e-commerce engine, whether it's a shopping engine, a shopping comparison. Actually, shopping comparison engine would be good, because e-commerce is taking off, but there isn't a comparison engine. I would say that's a wide open space right now. And fintech, of course, where it's cashless transactions. In India, we've had this disastrous demonetization. Nobody has any money now. We don't have cash in our hands right now. And suddenly there's a whole explosion of fintech startups coming out now, So I think that's something that is ripe for plucking in Pakistan.
What I would add to that is that typically it's like a Me Too idea that people follow. So people have seen the model of Amazon or some other entity that succeeded, and they try and replicate the same model domestically. And the challenges that exist in terms of, let's say, e-commerce delivery, the logistics and distribution side of it, it's a completely different set of challenges that you encounter in the US, which has a very, a lot of good infrastructure, and they have already the means to be able to deliver product and payments. In Pakistan, it's a different set of challenges, given the fact that you have cash on delivery, that the logistics network infrastructure is poor. So I think what makes sense is to really think about where the world is going and push yourself in terms of understanding what these new technologies are, right? I mean, so Asha talked about, blockchain, lots of things that can happen in the fintech side. What I see happening, and I think that's going to be at our doorstep, and I spoke about this, a few weeks ago when I was here, is artificial intelligence and natural language processing. All of these technologies are really going to be embedded in everything that we do, right? So the interface with which we communicate, which now seems to be primarily based on text, whilst the platform has moved from like a PC to a mobile device, the interface of communication and interaction is going to shift towards voice, right? Where we'll be able to talk to multiple devices and get feedback, instantaneously. So that's really where things are going, and the beauty is, when Asha is very close to Google, beauty is that a number of these large tech companies are opening up their technology, right? So you don't really need to do all the work to set up an artificial intelligence engine. You can ride on what exists today. But it's really curiosity that's required, to be curious enough to go and try different things, to see how these things work. That tinkering model, that tinkering that comes from being a maker, right, by creating something. So if you have that curiosity, I think the tools are out there. And also the information and really the knowledge base is out there. And connecting through people, Asha is here, I'm here to assist in whatever way that I can, to guide people in the right direction, and then really go and speak with experts, and then understanding where you are relative to where you should be, right? So it's the network, it's the understanding what's happening in the future, it's that healthy curiosity behind it, versus kind of just doing a copycat model, which tends to be the way that most tech companies go right now.
But that said, so I differ a little bit on on the clone companies situation with Arshad. I do feel that in our part of the world there is nothing wrong in being a clone company. Okay, and I feel that if something like an Uber or an Airbnb has succeeded in other part of the world, you must go ahead and clone it here. Actually, why not? There's no need to reinvent the wheel, and Kareem is a fantastic job of that. In India, there is a company called Oyo, which is it's kind of like a hybrid, Airbnb, but like COT, like this cash on delivery kind of stuff. It's using brick and mortar plus digital, economy to connect both of them, and it's kind of like an Airbnb of India, but it's it's homegrown. I don't know if there's one like that in Pakistan. If there isn't one like this in Pakistan, you must do it. I mean, that's a startup waiting to happen. Literally just copy something like Airbnb for the Pakistani market. Start that right away. Second thing, Yelp. Start that right away. There's nobody here. It's a wide open market. And if you're going to be taking courses on Coursera or Udacity, absolutely, as Arshad just said, do machine learning. That is the next big thing, and you don't have to be enrolled in any college or anything. Just take courses on machine learning that's available through these three MOOCs, Udacity, Coursera, Coursera, and edX. And I think the largest growth for these online learning companies right now is in India and Pakistan. It's interesting how we are, because of English, right, and so much youth, this is where the largest growth is.
I'd also mention like Khan Academy is there, Udemy is there, others that you can go to. And what I would also add to what Asha was saying is that an idea that is successful overseas may be successful here, but the mindset is to approach it from the local market's perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Kareem is a great example.
Exactly.
Kareem has competed with Uber, but it has really made its technology focus towards the domestic market, right? So, as long as you can innovate within the context of an idea that has a need in a market, that's great, but you need to take into account, what's happening domestically and incorporate that in your model.
It's a mysterious beast. This is the first time in history that data is growing so fast, right? That something out there is, so machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Once upon a time, they had a bad name in computer science because people used to say this is, these are these scientists who are computer scientists who are talking about, AI and machine learning doing this, doing that, it's just fuzzy science, right? That's what people used to say. What's interesting now, for the first time in history, the data is so large that machine learning is working. How it's working, we don't know. And so that is the mysterious element about it. So there is no doubt in my mind that in less than, 5 years, we would be having machines which would be much smarter than us actually. Right now, already, machines are able to read our minds, right? So, it's a matter of time when they can read our emotions, and actually now, they're already suggesting things to us like, saying things like, oh, today you are, not doing too well, you're looking unhappy. I mean, they're reading our biometrics, and there's a lot of stuff that machines are doing already that we thought was not possible a few years ago. But how it's happening, we don't know, and the computer scientists don't know. How is this blockchain, for example, scaling so fast? Nobody knows. But the data is proving that it's working. So I think that's the next, those who are academically oriented, I think that's a big area that you must look at, you must explore. If you're doing courses on that, explore that, because it's something that the big companies are spending huge amounts of money. Google is spending huge amounts of money, and Google is probably the leader in machine learning right now. So, they will be different, radically different from, if I was looking at a company in India or Pakistan, it would be very different from what it would be in the Bay Area. So in the Valley, because I've been there for 30 years now, and I've done these companies before, I know a lot of entrepreneurs. Typically what I now do as a lazy way out is to just say, if this is one of my already existing entrepreneurs and who has already exited 2-3 companies, they know what they're doing. Right, so I don't even look at what's the fourth company going to be. I just invest because I know that they know, they figured out what to do. In India and Pakistan, it is much more of it's a risky, situation right now, right? Because you know that. But the good news is that the amounts are small, So let's say if I invested in 20 companies in the next year or two, right, both here and in India, I do know that I'm betting on the entrepreneur, right? And that 99% their first company will not make it. I know that actually. And there are a couple of companies that I invested in India that did not survive. They got seed investment from me, but then they got venture capital investment from companies, big funds like Excel, So they got some good venture capital, but they still did not make it. But I know that this person now knows what's happening, right? Now I'm keeping an eye on this person more seriously than before. So I think, I would say that's it's different on this side of the world.
Yeah, I completely agree with Asha that it's a different set of circumstances when you're investing, overseas in an ecosystem that's far more developed versus the ecosystem that exists over here in our market. But there are also some key ingredients that are similar. One is certainly the entrepreneur, the team, their motivation, their alignment with investors. These are things that are very important, and I also look for a healthy sense of, there needs to be this inner confidence, but that confidence shouldn't be at a point where it's overbearing, right? So there needs to be some level of humility in terms of learning, wanting to learn, connecting with people and asking questions and being wrong and then readjusting and pivoting into different directions. So that flexibility, I think, is important. But one thing that is clear in my mind is that because these companies have become so successful and these names have become, not only household names but global names, people have already tried to at least understand how this process took place, and the traditional models of how companies were being funded, or investors were basically coming in and saying, I'll take the majority and you keep minority, etc. Those things are actually changing, which is a good sign. So there is a way of the two sides connecting with each other. There's a commonality, but still, the ecosystems are very, very different, and you need to have a different mindset in terms of investing there versus over here. And the point that the amounts are far smaller, so you can make mistakes. Asha, I had one question for you regarding getting money from a name brand investor, versus kind of just getting money from anyone, right? Because money, at the end of the day, everybody has it in their pocket. It's a commodity, right?
Not sure.
Or little
I'm
bit
not
of
so
it.
sure about that.
A little bit of it,
But-
right?
but okay,
but as
yes,
a
yes.
commodity,
Yes, it is. You're right.
So how do you attract the best of the best, right? Because that gives you the highest chance of success. What's the way to do that?
You mean how to attract the
how
best?
to attract the best investors,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, you could have the same idea
Yeah.
funded by Sequoia versus funded by XYZ venture capital, and obviously there's a lot of follow-on money that comes if it's Sequoia or Excel or Greylock or whoever, because they've already proven
True.
and have a track record.
Yeah.
So what's the way to really position yourself to get capital from some of these investors that if they show up on your roster, right, there's already a huge validation. How do you do that?
Well, Pakistan has already won. You have me here.
That's true. That's very true, and that's very encouraging. Yeah.
No, but I think if once myself and Osman and Ashar and all of us and Arshad, all of us, once we start investing here, I really think that the big venture funds will wake up and take notice. So I think this is a great start. I mean, I'm already blown away. There's nothing here that's lacking. I mean, I think these are the best minds that I've seen, and nothing is lacking actually, Arshad. We just need to make sure that we are, part of the ecosystem now. Make sure that you don't forget us now, because as you do interesting startups, you have to keep us in mind. So I would say, look, I think there are a lot of dentists and doctors. I have nothing against them. But there are a lot of dentists and doctors with a lot of money, coming from Detroit and, Houston and wherever, right? And they want to invest because they want to get into this internet game, right?
Yeah.
I do think that that would be less valuable than somebody who has invested in other startups and knows what it means to fail and succeed, So I think that, there is the difference in that smart money, context. There is that. Yeah. So look for track record.